Welcome everybody to the Chicago Bears franchise. Today we're going to recap the third offseason of the series that I streamed on Saturday. If you wish to watch the stream, it was a 3+ hour stream. It took a long time. There was a lot that happened, so if you want to watch the longer stream, it's on my channel. But today we'll recap the entire thing, plus what I did after the stream was over. But coming off our second straight 9-7 season, narrowly missing out on the playoffs, I knew I wanted to make a change at quarterback. Mitchell Trubisky hasn't developed the way we all had hoped, and I thought it was time to move into a new direction. I also wanted to make sure that this time we did not miss out on getting another tackle to combine with Frederick Chickillo. Here is a look at what my draft board looked like, as I did rank my top 20 or so prospects before the stream actually began. Overall, this draft class did impress me at a variety of positions. The season ended with a Super Bowl win going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, as I predicted last episode, or in the Week 17 video. I thought they beat the Panthers because of their great offense, and it turns out that is what happened. So the Steelers are champs going into year 4 of the series, but now let's focus on the offseason. When it came to our own free agents, I knew that I wanted many of them to test the open market. Some of them because I just had no interest in negotiating, or because I wanted to get them back at a smaller contract than they were hoping for. Now, for Jordan Howard, his contract actually was a lot smaller than I had expected, and originally I thought that maybe a tag and trade was possible because I knew that I wanted to acquire extra draft picks. We did not have a second round pick going into the offseason, and wanting to fill both tackle and quarterback was going to be tough without those picks. Here are the retirements from this season, as Larry Fitzgerald is among them, with Marshawn Lynch, Mike Wallace, Eli Manning. Our only retirement was Cliff Averill. Now to actual decisions. For Leonard Floyd, I made the case in the recap video of why we should not sign him. He has not been an efficient pass rusher and he has not shown growth on the field. I did want to keep Pernell McPhee, but not at the price he was asking. For guard Josh Sitton, I did want to re-sign him, but he rejected my offer. I also wanted to keep Prince Amukamara even at this price point, but he too declined the opening offer. From there we go to Matt Prater. I did want to keep our specialists on the team, but Matt Prater turned us down. It seemed like nobody was going to accept a contract, but Jonathan Bullard broke that streak as we keep one of our versatile defensive backups. I also wanted to keep Marcus Calhoun at least as depth, and he also accepted the contract offer. We do let some of these depth players go, including LaBrice Pringley and Marshall Christian. I do like having Jarrell Holland on the team, at least to compete for a roster spot, along with Joseph Brookins. And we also keep Aaron Singletary on the roster as the third tight end. Jordan Seiler we do let test, and then we signed DeAndre Houston Carson to a 1-year contract. Then we get back to Jordan Howard, who wanted a $36 million contract over 5 seasons, and I thought this was a very fair deal, and we had plenty of cap space to get it done. Howard agreed, and so he's on a long-term deal now with the Chicago Bears. I then was okay letting Pernell McPhee test free agency along with middle linebacker Danny Trevathan. I did want to keep Pat O'Donnell on a 4-year contract, and he said that he'd rather test out free agency. Then Bryce Callahan, we withdraw the offer to see what else the open market would show us, along with Marcus Cooper. I wanted to keep Michael Burton, but not at the price he was asking, so I was going to risk letting him test the market. I then franchise tagged Matt Prater to make sure he stayed with Chicago. That takes us to unrestricted free agency. And remember our needs. I wanted quarterback, tackle, a run-blocking guard. I also wanted to address cornerback. And the top player on the market was Jalen Ramsey, who was set to get a huge contract as the top cornerback perhaps in this franchise. We also had options at tackle with Joe Thomas, the veteran, or the younger 26-year-old Laramie Tunsil. I had more interest in Tunsil from the beginning. Then there were still good role players down the board. But of course I start with something else, and we go to Pat O'Donnell to offer him a contract smaller than what we offered previously. I then set some players on the trading block because I wanted to get more picks and there were veterans I was okay moving on from. So Mitchell Trubisky, Kyle Long, Charles Leno, and even Akeem Hicks were all added to the trade block. But back to free agency. With our need at cornerback alongside Curry Peters, I had to get in to this battle for Jalen Ramsey, even if it meant something like a $97 million contract. We're talking about low-end quarterback money for a corner. We had the room though, there was plenty of cap space, and I was set to dump some of these larger salaries that would give us even more space to work with. So in that case, instead of going for a short-term deal for Thomas, I wanted to go and offer a contract to Laramie Tunsil, even if there was more competition. I just like that he's younger, and he can still keep getting better while being already an above-average offensive tackle. I thought about going for a guard, but there weren't many options, and Mike Iupati, who was once the premier run-blocking guard in the NFL, is no longer that player. Josh Sitton, meanwhile, didn't have much of a market, so I gave him another one-year offer. Because trading Akeem Hicks was a possibility, I looked for other defensive linemen, and I thought David Onyemata would make for an excellent replacement, especially with all of the competition going to Malik Collins. I was okay moving on from Danny Trevathan, and there was Deion Jones available, but I never negotiated with him here because we were going for some other expensive free agents. So instead, I thought Reggie Ragland would be a nice value at middle linebacker, and he could pair up very nicely with Marquise Starling. Back to Prince Amukamara, we offer him a contract smaller than the one we offered initially, and he rejected. So I had a pretty busy opening stage of free agency, giving out contract offers. Laramie Tunsil's deal I thought was the most important for us to get done, so I increased his to be way above what the Buccaneers were offering. I also offered a 3-year contract to Michael Burton. Stage 1 took a lot of time, and it continues here with us trying to find a trade partner for Charles Leno, and we do successfully, getting a 5th-round pick from the Raiders. I increased Jalen Ramsey's offer to $98 million. Back we go to the trade center. I wanted to see what we could possibly get for Mitchell Trubisky, and the Cincinnati Bengals had a lot of interest. They weren't going to trade their 1st-round pick straight up for Trubisky, but I wanted to get the 2nd-round pick because we didn't have one any longer. So I added Bennett Jennings to the deal, and we got it done, getting a 2nd-round pick added to our draft for this year. So the Mitchell Trubisky era is now officially over. And here were our draft picks now entering the rest of the offseason, with 1 pick, 1 through 4, 2 5s, a 6, and 2 7s. Back to David Onyemata, we give him a contract offer a lot lower than he was asking for, and we do the same here for Pernell McPhee. So that was it for stage 1 at last. And here we go, seeing the decisions that various players made. Contracts accepted by David Onyemata. Josh Sitton, rejected by Laramie Tunsil, accepted by Pat O'Donnell, accepted by Michael Burton, rejected by Jalen Ramsey. The 2 most key free agents we offered contracts to both rejected, taking less money to go elsewhere. We have Jalen Ramsey taking $10 million less to go to Los Angeles, and Laramie Tunsil ended up going to Tampa Bay. The Rams also got Deion Jones, so they are very aggressive about rebuilding their defense this season. Leonard Floyd goes out to Philadelphia along with DJ Swearinger, and Jalen Smith goes to Oakland. So at this point it was plan B for tackle, and luckily Joe Thomas is as good of a plan B as you can ask for in this situation, so we obviously give him the contract offer. Next up, we go pass rusher, and this was a suggestion from the chat to go and sign Matthew Judon, and I thought that his skill set, being very balanced, would be a good fit for this team to hopefully find a role, and to give us a dependable veteran if we couldn't get an impact rookie. Following stage 2, we get contracts accepted by Prince Amukamara, Reggie Ragland, Joe Thomas, Matthew Judon, and Pernell McPhee. Much better news this time around as we get some of our key players back and also get some good players added to our roster. I offer a contract then to Bryce Callahan and start to pay more attention to the draft. Quarterback now became our focus, with Joe Thomas giving us some short-term relief at that position. There were a lot of quarterbacks I liked, but one of my favorites was Lewis Perry, and it turned out that he became a third-round prospect, and that worried me because I wondered why he was all of a sudden looked at as being a worse prospect. All of these quarterbacks I had interest in were pretty much average in terms of mobility, so the combine didn't really change my thoughts on them very much. One mistake I made before the stream was not having Clay Stites on my draft board at all. I just overlooked him and forgot about it, so I had to quickly put him on the board to rank him, and I put him above Lewis Perry because I was very worried about why Perry became a third-round prospect. This is back in the recap video before anything changed, and Perry was a mid-first round prospect, but I was wondering what made him a worse prospect. At least at quarterback there were a lot of options. The same can be said for guard. I liked many of them, but Lester Stallings became my favorite because his combine was excellent. He's not only a punishing run blocker, but he was a great athlete to go along with it. In Stage 4, we get the contract accepted by Callahan, and then a trade offer at last from another team. For Akeem Hicks, the New England Patriots wanted to give us a 4th and a 5th round selection, and given the depth in this class and how I wanted to maybe move up or down the board, I thought this was good value and it helped out our draft situation. For a 30-year-old player who's now regressing with a big contract, I thought it was a good deal. I scouted a few more players based on good combine scores, and we found a 7th round tight end who was interesting. DJ Hackney ran a 4.65 with good receiver skills and can run block a little bit. Then Ray Onubun from Idaho was a fast safety. I added him to our draft board to close out scouting. So now we start to look at the draft, and I just wanted to see if I could figure out why Lewis Perry's draft stock had fallen. And here's what I found. It was his running that made him a worse prospect, but there was still something that worried me here, as we see Matt Miller say that the way he runs exposes the ball and exposes him to possible injury. I took that to mean that maybe his injury rating was worse, and I thought that maybe him going from a first-round prospect to a third-round prospect maybe meant that his development wasn't very good. So Perry wasn't really on my radar anymore at quarterback, as he went way down the board. I also didn't notice this earlier, but in my head I kept thinking that Ben Talbot was like the top consensus player in this draft, when really he was a mid-first round prospect. So that definitely changed things going into the draft, as Turner Glowinski goes number 1 overall to Kansas City. I wanted to see how fast these quarterbacks would go. We were set to pick at 20 overall. We see Will Berry go off the board, Bierman the top tackle. The Bucks take Roman, and Bennett Spencer goes number 5 to Cleveland. So right there, I thought about trading up because the Ravens had a need at quarterback, but I knew it wasn't going to be cheap to move up from 20. I was okay giving up some future capital, but I just didn't think that the price was going to be right. I thought it would take a little too much, especially considering I liked both Ben Talbot and Clay Stites a lot. So I decided to wait, and the Ravens went cornerback anyway. Then the Texans go and take a wide receiver. Atlanta follows that up by taking Newton, the top middle linebacker. We have Moton go to the Lions, the top cornerback in this class. The Titans go safety with Clinton Dix. So then we were 10 picks from our spot, and the quarterbacks just kept not going until at 13, the 49ers took Ben Talbot. I was debating between Talbot and Stites, because they had different strengths as passers. There came a point where I convinced myself that I wanted Clay Stites instead of Ben Talbot because I thought that deep accuracy and his medium accuracy would be very valuable. So I traded up from number 20, giving Kyle Long to the Jaguars, and we take the new quarterback of the Chicago Bears franchise. It's Clay Stites, and he's a 78 overall. His deep accuracy and medium accuracy were B-, and they are indeed very low 80s. Short accuracy comes in at 80. And while accuracy was a problem for Mitchell Trubisky, we end up taking a quarterback with worse short accuracy, I believe somewhat worse medium accuracy, but better deep accuracy. and that was not a very popular move, to say the least, once that decision was made, especially missing out on Ben Talbot. I started to then look at trading up for J.D. Maslowski, a good edge rusher who was a mid-first round talent, and he kept falling down the board. We picked at 50, so it would take a lot to move up, but he just kept sliding. I had to compare him to Ivory Sanford because they were both really good prospects, but Sanford was a mid-round prospect instead of Maslowski, and I thought that maybe Maslowski's slide had to do with him having lower development. But he fell into the second round, and teams did not seem to be in a hurry to take him. We make it to the mid-30s, and we try to trade up now with Tampa Bay, and it would have just taken more than I was willing to part ways with. So we continue on. He doesn't go at 38, he doesn't go in the early 40s. Then San Francisco at 45, just 5 picks away from us, take a different outside linebacker. And then finally at 48, Maslowski goes to the Seahawks. So we're left at pick 50 with no real second round prospect I wanted to take in this spot. So I looked at trading down, and teams will at times do this in the draft. We traded with Minnesota, an in-division rival. They moved up to number 50, and they take a wide receiver. We acquired their third round pick to add to our mid-round value, and then just traded down again because there still wasn't anybody I wanted to take in the second round. We go down to the third round, and Lewis Perry ends up going to the Atlanta Falcons. We then fall at 84 to finally pick again. And we had 2 picks pretty close to one another. A big need on this roster was a good run-blocking guard, and Lester Stallings was the last available. I couldn't miss out, so we took him there, and he's indeed very strong. Great impact block at 92, and I love his athleticism. 80 run block isn't high right now, but with some development, I think he has a very high ceiling. And before we can make our next pick, a few picks later, Sanford went to the Raiders, meaning we missed out on another great edge rusher, and there wasn't another one I liked in this draft class. I had a lot of misses in this class in terms of getting players that I either wanted or players that would have been of good value. So we trade down again, and this time just trade out to take the second round pick next year from the Dallas Cowboys. We sim through into the 100s and pick again at 106 overall. This was where I thought there was some really good value. And we start out with a 5th round prospect because he was just the best player available, Ed Acho, the 15th ranked player in true talent, an outstanding receiver, and there really wasn't much to worry about in terms of his speed because it's 90. So we have now 3 receivers, all 6'2" or taller, with adequate speed that can be great possession receivers if you need them to be. Following that, knowing I missed out on edge rushers, I just traded a 5th round pick for Carl Lawson, who was a backup on the Bengals. My new approach there just became go get as much competition as we can at edge rusher. After that, in the 4th round, we had back-to-back selections. And we start with Shaquille Tull, who's a really interesting cornerback prospect. Excellent speed and man cover ability. Not very tall, not the best in press or when it comes to tackling, but I was still impressed with his talent. Then we go cornerback again with Dalton Benjamin. I wanted to get depth at cornerback, and I thought the value was okay right here, taking the 2 cornerbacks in a row. In the 5th round, I'd addressed the interior offensive line again by going Russell Underwood, a 74 overall center. I think that's a little overrating him in a way, but I guess he's an all-around capable backup center at the worst. We follow that up in the 5th round with DJ Hackney. Yes, I overdrafted a lot in this draft. Hackney has good speed, good hands, he can block a little bit, and he's only 21. I love that selection. Mike Simmons then in the 6th round. I wanted some extra speed at receiver. Someone like Kendall Demmons, who can also play in the slot and return kicks. He can definitely do that. Then in the 7th round, we go Ray Onubun. He's a very speedy safety, but not a good cover safety, so I see him as more of just a special teams player. We had 1 pick still to make, so I looked for the most intriguing athlete that we could add to this roster. I went through a variety of different players, but ultimately there was one that stood out the most. A defensive tackle from Miami. Rashard Witzel. He ran a 4.92 40 and put up 32 reps of 225. I was very interested. And the pass rusher out of Miami turns out to be a 71 overall. Very good strength. He has some power moves in his game as well. He could be a great backup and maybe a future starter down the road with those ratings. So that brings the draft to an end, and many were disappointed, which I think is very reasonable. Missing out on Sanford and Talbot were the big problems. And something during this stream made me change my mind on quarterback, because Ben Talbot was my #1 player going into the entire offseason. So I went through afterwards, watching some of the stream back again, looking at different things and just trying to figure out where my thought process was, because suddenly I became more intrigued with the quarterback that had good deep and medium accuracy. But what about Lewis Perry, my original favorite quarterback, because I thought he'd be a great value? He turns out to have better ratings overall than Stites. And there were no injury concerns. It was all to do with him as a runner. So it was ridiculous criticism that I took too seriously, thinking he might have lower development. And that takes us to Ben Talbot, a superstar development quarterback with excellent short accuracy, and in due time he should probably be a well-rounded quarterback. Ivory Sanford goes to Oakland with a very good skill set, excellent speed, he can rush the passer. There are some injury concerns with him, but he's an excellent pass rusher. The Vikings end up taking Sherrod Pryor near the bottom of the first round. He's a very good guard. Marvin Moten to the Lions, superstar development. He's going to play alongside Darius Slay. The Packers get Caleb Lumpkin, a good possession receiver. Our rivals did a fantastic job in the first round. And then JD Maslowski did have slow development, but I still think he's an excellent player. To end the stream, we got into practice mode to see our new quarterback throw some passes. My concern was just his overall accuracy, because the ratings didn't say he was going to be a major upgrade over Mitchell Trubisky, who was not a very accurate quarterback. But as we got into the practice, Clay Stites nailed a majority of the throws I wanted him to make at all 3 areas of the field. He is not as mobile as Trubisky, and deep accuracy is already, I think, 5 points better than where Trubisky had it. I will have him as a focus player. I do want to upgrade his short accuracy first, but I think that I want to make pushing the ball down the field a greater emphasis of the offense. And with our improved offensive line, that might actually be possible. We have the receivers to do it, and a quarterback whose skill set best fits that of a vertical offense. He also throws well outside the pocket, so even off platform, he can make some incredible passes. This was a small sample size, but from what we saw in the stream, I was impressed with the way Clay Stites threw the football. Here's the last throw. Just an excellent throw delivered to Harlan Regis. Now, you're going to see what happened after the stream was over, and there were a couple moves. We signed some undrafted free agents along with a veteran, Jakeem Grant. We did draft Mike Simmons, but you can't deny Grant's route running compared to Simmons. He has 96 speed, he's been a veteran, so I thought he'd be a good addition. We signed Martinez Strahan as an outside linebacker to add to the competition we have there. Then a couple running backs, because you know whose channel this is. Anton Fitzgerald has some good elusiveness and agility in his game, along with good speed. I always want an undrafted quarterback, and we signed Darian Sims from Maine. We then go to Minnesota for a free safety, Clayton Coleman, who could be an interesting developmental backup safety. One more running back, Sean Price. He had the best blend of height, weight, and speed, and I really want to see what he can do in the preseason. We also signed Ladarius Milne because I wanted a cornerback, at least one who had a zone cover emphasis. At this point, we had $22 million in cap space, with Joe Thomas giving us the largest salary cap hit. But I wasn't quite done there. I added one more young quarterback in Troy Kittner from Louisiana Lafayette. But what I really wanted to add was a quarterback with great short accuracy, just in case Clay Stites doesn't work out. Jay Cutler would be the best player on the open market, because the Vikings went and got Phillip Rivers, and they're still keeping Sam Bradford, 2 players who are getting older but have been good short ball throwers. So I looked to see where we could possibly make a move in a trade. The Browns had a quarterback third on their depth chart that I thought was very interesting. He does not have a big arm, but he is accurate, very accurate on short throws. Kaysen Shore. So I wanted to swap out Andrew Leonard for Kaysen Shore. They wouldn't do it straight up. So I threw in a 7th round selection, and we have completely turned over our quarterback room on the team. Mitchell Trubisky and Andrew Leonard now move to the AFC North, and we move forward with Clay Stites, Kaysen Shore, and some other young quarterbacks trying to make the roster. So right now, Clay Stites is our starting quarterback until further notice, but now we have a quarterback who has a very different skill set just in case. And here's a look at our depth chart now going into the preseason. There's going to be a lot of competition, especially on defense. We have the pass rushing spots all up for grabs. And then defensive line. Can Bram Dirth earn his starting job this year? Because he's not just going to be handed it this time. And here's our schedule as we face the AFC South in addition to our NFC opponents this season. And we close it out at home against the Lions. That ends today's episode in the Bears franchise. Thank you all for supporting the series. I know many are disappointed by this offseason, and it's reasonable. But I accept the challenge now of trying to make all of this work. It was a strange offseason, but I do like a lot of the players that we added. The preseason streams begin Wednesday, and I'll see you then. Please leave a like, subscribe, and you can hit the bell for notifications when I post videos and create posts where I talk about what is coming to the channel in the near future. Have a great day, everybody. See you again soon.